With the Armanz the Magnificent Fusion event starting very soon, we've got some hot takes floating around the community talking about how overpowered he is or how much he's going to shake up the game. And I want to cover some of the different opinions out there and then give you my perspective on what I think about this, because it's going to be starting very soon, launching tomorrow, and everybody's going to be curious about all the information going on around Armanz. So I saw this post right here that Plarium must act and they must nerf Armanz in the next 48 hours. So let's see what they have to say, and let's hear what some other people have to say as well, and then I'll give you my perspective. So it starts out here. There is a difference between overpowered and broken. Some characters have abilities that are strictly overtuned and are must collect. While players might get frustrated, this is good for design, as slow power creep drives sales and opens up the field for developing harder content. Broken characters limit design space by removing challenges in their entirety. Armanz would qualify as broken in their opinion. So when properly built, easily accessible for any player capable of completing the fusion. That's debatable, but we'll get to that in a little bit. His A2 will single-handedly make 99% of the PvE wave content completely irrelevant. You can see the kit up there, the A2. They're talking about that AoE mass suppression stun that not only stuns but also removes all of the turn meter as well. And they go on to explain the kit there. This is fundamentally different than being overpowered. He doesn't increase the power level of your team. He removes an element of the game completely. How important is this element of the game? Well, he can solve all dungeon waves, faction waves, Centranos waves, Doom Tower waves, and campaign waves. Well, not all, because, you know, faction is only his faction. Centranos is only when you can use him and all of that. And not every boss even has waves. You've got situations like the spider and stuff like that. From March 21st onward, March of 2024, every time you open a shard and pull an amazing champion for wave-based content, you've completely pulled a chicken. There's no point to own those champions because you could always just use Armanz and add another boss killer. Additionally, Armanz will prevent Plarium from creating any future-based wave content without adding special passives to enemy characters. Plarium has either already realized this game breaking character or will very soon. The issue is Plarium would be making a massive mistake by waiting to nerf Armanz. As much as everyone on Reddit likes to complain, one of the best elements of Raid Shadow Legends is the Fusion and Titan events. These events reward players for playing all the time, either stockpiling resources for going after events, and create a very satisfying feedback loop for players who complete them. Analyzing your current champion pool, figuring out what holes you need filled to make progression, making a tough decision on whether the resources are worth it, and then establishing your own personal plan to execute. Plarium recognizes this, as they have added more Titan events recently and are likely thinking of new ways to run similar events. However, this feedback loop is destroyed when Plarium nerfs Fusion champions after the Fusion has already started. Players have already invested their in-game resources and time based on the information of the Fusion reward, and then these players feel cheated and grow skeptical about participating in future Fusions. And yeah, they're basically saying, like, tricking players into really going after an OP or strong champion that will be very account changing, and then nerfing them a month later is kind of a bait and a scam, and a huge feels bad for everybody that made the decision to spend the resources to go after that based on how strong they thought the champion was going to be. Then we're almost at the end here. While I understand there are circumstances in which a change must be made late, unexpected interactions and bugs and stuff, this is not one of those cases. Content creators, oh, those stupid content creators, and Raid Reddit community, and anyone who spent 1 minute reading Armanz's A2 understands that Armanz will eventually be nerfed. So a TLDR for Plarium and the Raid team, we all play your game and enjoy it. Enough to spend time on a subreddit dedicated to it. Fusions are what makes your game special. Some of this is debatable. Please preserve the integrity of these events by making balance changes before these events go live. Armanz must be nerfed in the next 48 hours before the Fusion goes live, or he should not be changed at all. Well, that I kind of agree with. I think it does kind of suck to nerf champions after a Fusion, especially if you do it soon. You don't give players like 2 years to use the champion how they intended and all that. I see other games do this. I talked about Overwatch. They'll release like a super broken tank as part of their battle pass. Everybody buys the battle pass, and then a month later they balance the champion. After everybody was already super excited to collect the champion and pay money to get it as fast as possible, then they balance it, and it's kind of a scummy or toxic way to do things. But okay, let's see what some of the top comments are, and then I'll let you know where I fall on this topic here. So personally, I don't care if he's nerfed or not, but if they're going to nerf him, it needs to be before the fusion starts. Again, I would kind of agree with that take. And then this one, is wave-based content even relevant? How is this any different than having Seer and Renegade and all that? Yeah, so they're arguing some of the things that I said earlier, whereas there isn't even always wave content, and you can't use Armanz everywhere. So it's not like he completely negates all wave content in the game. But yes, for faction wars, if you haven't finished his faction, he is going to be an auto slot and he's going to lock it down 100%. Or for like Doom Tower, if you're using a slow CC team and you're not like speed farming it with Seer on the certain waves, he's going to be an amazing wave progression champion somewhere like the normal stages of the Doom Tower that aren't boss fights. Then they also say, besides, with the latest content, it seems like they're going away from waves. Just look at Iron Twins, Sand Devil, Shogun, plus the boss in the Cursed City. They never have waves in them, and he does practically nothing for Hydra or Clan Boss. Yeah, so I kind of agree with them, and even in the stages that have waves, it's very rarely one of the most defining parts of the fight. Like, you're like in the Doom Tower, you're not worried about the waves for Bommel. You're worried about Bommel. The waves are like 10% of the focus. They're not the main gist of what you're trying to build a team for. You usually just kind of do whatever you can to get through the waves, and the real challenge is going to be the fight. Armanz doesn't really change any of that, but he will absolutely be amazing for locking down waves and helping you progress through them if that's your bottleneck of progression. Okay, anything else here? Any of the top comments? We've got, why do people keep thinking they want the game balanced? They want everyone to get the champ so that they will then sell a solution to it or make an event to get his soul behind some sort of paywall. Yeah, that's probably true. Obviously, Plarium is going to want power creep. They're going to want champions that people are excited to go after because obviously that's going to drive activity and revenue for their fusion events. And that's what's tough as a developer, because you want to produce champions that are hype and people want to go after them, but you also don't want to break your game, and you also don't want to make them so good that they're too ridiculous, and then it's going to ruin your game if you don't nerf them. So it's a very tough line to walk. And then we'll go over one more here. We've got, I view Armanz more akin to a catch-up mechanic. Decent point. Allowing newer players to farm Doom Tower and dungeons more easily so they can push much harder content sooner. He isn't broken in any of the current late game, end game PvE content, which right now includes Hydra, Sand Devil, Shogun, Iron Twins, and Cursed City. Yes, he will be amazing in the non-bossed Cursed City stages where he's allowed, but he will be excluded from the majority of Soul Cross stages anyway. So in that sense, he's not broken. As far as PvP goes, yes, he can be pretty devastating, but maybe it's high time we had more shakeups in the meta. He's not any worse than the ridiculousness that is Charichka. They're referring to Taras and Marichka, the Ukrainian champion duo, or Sify plus Rotos, for example, or Wukong. PvP metas will always adjust anyways. Let's maybe be thankful that we're seeing impactful PvP champions that are much more accessible. And Korra and Narcissus were a step in the right direction, and this fusion will add to that. And I think this take is kind of where I would align with the most. I do think it's a good point that he's a little bit of a catch-up mechanic. I mean, anybody that started playing Raid in the last year or so, Armanz is going to be a ridiculous addition to their account, most likely, unless they're like an uber whale that's spent over like $10,000. I mean, for your normal new-ish Raid player, Armanz is going to be an auto lock. You want to add him to your account because he will help you catch up and progress in a lot of different areas. So yeah, as far as my final kind of take on this, I don't think he needs to be nerfed immediately or he's going to like ruin Raid Shadow Legends. I just think he's definitely one of the crazier fusion type champions they've done, and the events required to get him are probably going to be pretty difficult, so I would brace yourself for that. But also, like, when I polled the community, only like 50% of people polled were even rating him as S tier. We had almost 5,000 votes on this poll, 4,500, and only 56% of the viewers here on the channel said that he was S tier, and then you have 31% saying he's A tier, which wouldn't even be one of the top tier legendaries. So I think he's strong, and I think he's going to help a lot of accounts out there, especially people that have started playing in the last year or two and they're not big spenders. He's going to help you progress further into the Doom Tower waves, and he's going to finish that faction for you probably in Faction Wars if you haven't completed it and stuff like that. But he's not going to be like some game-changing Hydra champion, a Sand Devil, stuff like that. He's just going to be very strong in a certain niche. And I don't know if I agree with the one person saying he's going to make all of the champions like Seer completely irrelevant, because Seer is still going to be faster. Like you're not going to want to use Armanz in your speed farm Fire Knight team. You're going to want to like set yourself up, nuke, reset cooldown, set yourself up, nuke, reset cooldown, and then kill the boss, and you're gonna want to finish it in like 49 seconds. You're not gonna want to like do this slow lockdown with Armanz. You're still gonna want to use someone like a Seer to blast through the waves if you can optimally set it up. So I don't think he's gonna make all those champions irrelevant. He's just gonna be very strong in that slow CC lockdown style. And you know what? Maybe I'll host a poll over on the community tab, and we will ask you, the viewer, do you think that Armanz needs to be nerfed, or it's going to be bad for the game if he is not? I would say my vote in that poll would be no. I don't think so. Like if I were voting on the poll, just so I'm not a fence sitter and I give you my opinion, I would probably vote no. I would say I just think he's super strong and he's going to be very good in certain roles, but I don't think I would agree with the people that say he needs to be nerfed or it's going to like ruin the game or be something catastrophic. But that doesn't mean if I was in charge that I wouldn't make changes to his kit. I did talk about in my Armanz video, there are a couple changes I would make. Most notably, I don't think we want more sheep and more polymorph type stuff in the game. That kind of annoys me a little bit, and I would probably go with something like a sleep instead of a stun, the hard CC, especially if he's going to be removing that much turn meter already. So there are some things that I personally would change if I was in charge, but I don't think it's going to like ruin Raid. So yeah, remember to head on over to the community tab and let your voice be heard by voting over there. And it would mean a lot to earn your subscription today if you enjoy Raid Shadow Legends content. I appreciate all of you, and good luck in the Fusion if you're going for him. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Peace.